The Charlotte Ledger Podcast is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network.
This episode of the Charlotte Ledger Podcast is presented by PBS Charlotte's Unspun program, helping you learn what politicians are thinking but not saying. Hosted by former Governor Pat McCrory.
Welcome to the Charlotte Ledger Podcast. I'm Steve Dunn. To find out more about the Charlotte Ledger, visit thecharlotteledger.com. I'm joined today by Sam Hart, founder of Irreverently Refined Hospitality Group and experience director of Counter. Counter, I would think of as a restaurant, but you don't call it a restaurant. What, Sam, is Counter?
So we do not consider it a restaurant. We consider it to be a fully immersive sensory dining experience. So when people go to a restaurant, they're thinking more, I place an order, I get food, I have service, I pay the bill, go home. You know, our number one focus of the experience is exactly that, where people are kind of generating a memory, having a connection, having communication with all members of the staff, and food is involved, but also storytelling is involved, hospitality is involved, the connection with the outside community is involved. So we used to call it a restaurant, and then we realized that by saying that it's just a restaurant, we were kind of confining the impact that we wanted to make. And so experience was something that really, I think, encapsulates what we're doing a whole lot more.
Well, Counter is certainly well-known in Charlotte, and most especially among people who do like to eat, who are interested in food and wine. And I want to ask you all about it. But first, just a little bit about you. As someone who has gotten into the food business, I'll venture a guess that you like food and that food is something that you have a passion for. And I wonder what your earliest memories of that are.
I would say that my passion for food came from a completely different field than the average chef and cook. I didn't really have, a grandmother that was teaching me how to cook, and I wasn't really in the kitchen all the time with, parents. It was more, I was enjoying fast food and corporate dining like most Charlotteans at the time when I was growing up were. I really discovered cooking when I was in my early 20s. And that spurred on a passion that was initially a hobby and then turned into my entire life. Actually, 10 years ago was when I quit corporate America to then go after cooking full-time professionally.
What was it? What was the start for you? Was it a restaurant job?
No. So what's actually kind of funny is my first restaurant job was something that I had to do. Well, I felt like I had to do it when I was in college for the second time. So I dropped out of college 4 times. So the second stint was when I went to CPCC the first time. And I was waiting tables at an Applebee's on Independence Boulevard next to where there used to be a Blockbuster. I think it's now like a ER, like urgent care clinic or something. And I even told myself, like, restaurants are horrible. Like, I'm never going to do this ever again. I will forever know the smell of Chipotle ranch and how to clean out ramekins. Like, it was terrible. But the real reason why I got into food was more by necessity. I was out in Utah. I followed someone out there, didn't work out, and I didn't have any money. So I realized that the only way that I was going to survive was by cooking. And so I was getting 10 for 10 boxes of pasta, 3 for $5 jars of tomato sauce. And it kind of just clicked. I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. I can adjust things. I'm learning a little bit. It's kind of making, at the time my life was kind of depressing. Like I was not enjoying life that much. And it was something that was like a small spark of joy every single day. It was just cooking. And then I decided, maybe I can learn how to make my own pasta. I can make this sauce from scratch. And then slowly, actually pretty rapidly, I just wanted to learn how to cook other things. And it was almost 4 years later that I was having groups of friends over, cooking for them, doing these little parties. And then the idea of Counter came in my head one day and I couldn't sleep. It was just like the exact way that it's designed right now is the way that I sketched it out in a sketchbook 10 years ago. And, I knew that I had to do it. This is like my one opportunity to do something unique and one of a kind. So I quit my job the next day and went to culinary school.
You had the idea and quit your job the next day?
Yeah.
The vision come to you fully formed all at once?
Pretty much, yeah. I think the only things that changed were, because I did want everyone at a Counter and I did want to have music pairings and and storytelling. But the only things that were different is some of the priorities. I didn't initially think that we were going to do so much with 501c3 partners. I didn't think it was going to be in Charlotte. I didn't think it was going to be, local driven as far as product. I was thinking more that I was going to import things all over the world that other people hadn't seen before.
You're establishing a career, you're doing well, you're comfortable, you got a family, you're playing by all the rules or whatever, and then this vision comes to you.
Yeah, it was like 3 months after I got married that the idea came through, and I was on pace to make like $225,000 that year. I was doing well. I mean, this is 10 years ago. I was 24 and decided to quit to go to culinary school and I was making $8.13 an hour as a dishwasher, my first job as well. And I was doing like Lyft and Uber in the middle of the night to pay for everything too. But when I had the idea for Counter and how I wanted to go after that, and it was also affirmed yet again when I watched the Chef's Table on Grand Achatz, I knew that I had to sell myself out to it. I had to do absolutely everything to go after it and hopefully be great at this idea, because I'm giving up everything to go after it. Might as well be good at it.
Oh, yeah. Well, all right. Well, tell me about the Chef's Table. This is a Netflix show, right? So what is the episode that you saw that had such an effect on you?
So it's the second season, and it's on Grand Achatz, who I would say is on your Mount Rushmore of American chefs. He's the person who brought molecular gastronomy and modernist gastronomy to the United States back in the early to mid 2000s.
Let's talk about those terms for just a second. Yeah. I mean, this is basically sort of cooking techniques that are modern, I think new, unconventional in certain respects.
Mm-hmm. What's kind of crazy is that it's no longer new. I would say that if you were to ask people like Michelin or World's 50 Best or your standard food critic, I would say that those techniques now are pretty dated. And that's why you're starting to see some of these restaurants, losing stars or kind of falling off a little bit because they're not inventing newer things. But
the types of techniques that we're talking about, though, are like a lot of like liquid nitrogen, freezing,
utilizing science.
But presenting food in a way that is different from tradition, as a break from tradition in some fashion. Like you're freezing things that aren't usually frozen. You're making liquids out of things that are usually solids, and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's incredibly creative. So great examples of this is that, they had an olive spherification dish where they utilized two different hydrocolloids, calcium lactate and sodium alginate, and you're able to pretty much make an egg yolk that is filled with whatever substance you want. And then they also did a lot of...
Well, let me just break in there and tell you, I had that olive, and it's what it is it's a... I ate this at a different restaurant that the brother opened in Barcelona called Tickets, and this was one of the courses that came out, and it comes out and it's on a plate, and it's an olive-colored egg yolk. Egg yolk is a good way to put it. It's about the size and shape of an egg yolk, and you put it in your mouth, and it bursts in your mouth, and it tastes just like an olive. Like it tastes exactly like an olive, but it's liquid on the inside, and so it is both familiar and challenging at once,
So what they all realize is that if we can connect you with nostalgia and with flavors that you understand and things that you're familiar with, but present them in a completely different way and have you interact with it in a completely different way, then you won't be lost, you'll be intrigued. So at that point, you can't introduce people to whole brand new flavors and crazy techniques at the same time, because it's not going to make sense. There's no common language.
I want to talk all about Counter, all right? Okay. But here's how I want to get there.
Yeah.
We had a short detour, but I want to bring it back to a Netflix show that you watched about Grand Achatz, right?
Yeah.
And so how to connect the dots between that episode and what it was like, what you saw there, and then bring me to the creation of Counter.
Yeah. So I watched that episode right when I decided to leave corporate America to go into
what's his restaurant?
So at Alinea.
Okay. All right.
And I go into restaurants and things are just not working out the way that I thought they were. I went through a divorce. I wasn't really making the food that I was expecting to make. And I was like, it was just a severe struggle. And I really wanted to get just a little bit of motivation, just a little bit of inspiration to keep going. So I watched that episode a second time. And I realized, okay, you didn't give up all of this to not succeed. So I got a tattoo of the balloon, something that was incredibly, influential to me and inspiring to me. And it was something that was created by his executive chef at the time, Mike McGale. And I got it tattooed on my arm right over here. And I posted on Instagram my tattoo. And I just said, thank you to Chef Mike McGale for inspiring me to keep on moving and still go after this dream. And he reposted it and he said, holy shit, this cook just got a tattoo of my dish on his arm. And I took my chance and I replied back and I said, hey, does this give me an interview? Does this give me what we call a stage? And he said, yes. So I fly up there a month later. So I show up, I'm the tattoo guy. And I knew that they were looking down on me because I had no Michelin experience. At 27 years old, I'm the oldest person who's interviewing that day by a landslide because there's multiple people interviewing every single day. And I knew that I had to make an impact. And I knew that I had to elbow my way in. I had to frankly seize the opportunity and take it. So I'll never forget, first minute that I'm in there, I set up my knives and everything, and I see all the cooks surrounding this massive, what we call a Lexon. It's a massive plastic container filled with blanched cherry tomatoes. And I know exactly what they're doing. They're peeling these cherry tomatoes. And I've done it before. It's a pain in the ass, but you just got to get it done. So I take my small knife, I literally elbow my way in there, and I just start shelling through them. And then, the other cooks are looking at me like, who is this person? And I say, I'm Sam coming up here from Charlotte. And they're like, oh, you're a tattoo guy. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, all right, what can I get on to next? I find out who I'm staging with. And he tells me the next thing. And I was like, okay, can you tell me the next 4 things?
Staging in this context it's like a working interview, right?
Yeah.
You're sort of like, you're kind of auditioning by doing.
Correct.
Okay.
So he was like, well, just get this next thing done. And I was like, I can do 3 things at a time. Like, just give me something I can put on the stove, give me something I can put in the oven, and give me something I can put on my cutting board. I'll do all 3 right now. Just like, and then he starts laughing. I was like, I don't think you understand. This is what I'm up here to do, and I'm going to get this job. So tell me what I need to get done. Give me the next 5 things I need to get done, and we'll go after it. So he gives me a full prep list, and I screw up a couple things, but I make up for it. We're good. And I made a decision in that moment that I was not going to leave unless they gave me a job or they put me in handcuffs and pried me out of this restaurant. Because it's an awe-inspiring kitchen because you could hear a pin drop. It's perfectly clean, perfectly organized. The smells are insane. It smells like Palo Santo. It smells like perfectly clean fryer oil, which is a very specific smell. And so I told myself I was not going to leave unless they gave me a job or pried me out. I worked 5 a.m. to around 10 p.m. or midnight that day, the next day.
Did you say 5 a.m.?
Yeah.
Until 10 p.m.?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. All right.
Then,
gotcha. This is the first day.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And this is in this is in October-ish. And so it was pretty cold outside, but I walked home in just a t-shirt because I was so hot and sweaty. I needed to cool down. And my buddy lived 7 blocks north. So I was supposed to only be there for 2 days. I show up on the 3rd day. No one says anything. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to keep going at it. I'm at day 10 before they realize what's going on. And that's when Chef Grant, this is only his 2nd day in the restaurant because he had been mainly over at Next trying to get them to a Michelin star, which they would end up getting. And, at Royster. And that's when Chef Grant was like, how many days has this person been here? And Chef Simon, who is the new executive chef, he's like, I'm actually not sure.
Yeah, they started worrying about labor laws.
110%.
Yeah.
So that's the fun kicker to this. Yeah. So Chef Simon pulls me aside and just asked me, why are you here? I said, I want a job. And he said, do you really want to work here? I said, yeah. And then he walked me through the same spiel that Chef Grant apparently has told everyone, which is, do you have a girlfriend? I said, yeah. And he's like, well, you're not going to be able to see her. Do you do your own laundry? Yeah. Well, you're going to have to get a laundry service. Do you have a dog? I said, no. He's like, good, because you would have to hire a walker. He's like, this is going to be your life. This is every moment of your life. And when you're not here, you're going to be resting to make sure that you can be here. I was like, I'm down. Like, let's go. And when he offered me a job, I wept. Like, I mean, talking about like cheeks shaking, like tears everywhere. And that's when I found out that they're called the Charlie Trotter laws. So during the massive lawsuit of labor issues with Charlie Trotter, they enacted in the city of Chicago where you have to pay for stages and you can't have unpaid clocked out time. You have to have paid salary, overtime and everything. So I had to get paid for all the hours that I was at Alinea for. I found out that I was one of the highest paid people at Alinea those 2 weeks because my overtime was nuts. Like I worked, I think it was something crazy. Like I had worked 140 hours, 150 hours in 10 days. It was something crazy, but yeah, I mean,
so then you're learning from the best. You're getting the experience, and I imagine that was a critical step in your path.
It was grueling. It was grueling because it's one of those things like, do you really want this? Is this really what you want to go after? And
now, where are you in time? Like, where are you? How old are you? How many years ago is this? And how does this
is? I was there from winter of 2018 to pretty much spring of 2019. So I was there for 4 months, and I slowly I saw it and felt it happening. I had lost within the first month and a half. I had lost about 20 pounds. I was sober. Completely sober at the time, not even Cali sober, like completely sober.
It's hard.
I was getting nosebleeds randomly. And then the best way I can explain is like internal sunshine in the spotless mind. Like you just saw like this crumbling taking place. Like I literally felt like my world was crumbling around me. Like I was zeroing in on the task at hand. Everything, my peripheral vision was gone. Like I would blink and like hours would go. It was crazy. And
is this because of hours and the stress?
Stress, because like at Alinea, your prep list is like 30 items long. And if you screw up one small thing, your whole day is screwed. And no one's going to help you. Like you ask for help and they're like, no, you got to earn this. Like you're a comie. You got to go after it. And then they'll
not to mention each one of those people has their own list of things.
It's great. Yeah. And like their experience is nuts, So anyway, I find myself like I'm crashing out hard. And I just remember going to the train and then I blink and I wake up and I'm in the Ravenswood Behavioral Health Hospital. And I find out that this is how you know that I wasn't mentally sound. I had jumped onto the tracks of the North and Clybourne Red Line station an entire 2 minutes before the train was going to arrive there, because I was just so out of my mind. And the person who was doing, like the police officer or security guard, whoever who was working that train station, knew what was happening. I got my phone out somehow and I still I can still see the lift receipt on there. I lifted myself to the health hospital and I would end up spending 10 days there, which is ironic because it's the same amount of time that I staged for Alinea. And that's during that time frame. That's when I really realized the difference of what I was calling Icarus at the time, because the initial concept, I wanted to call it Icarus because, yes, he flew too close to the sun and fell down, but at least he flew. No one ever talks about that. That was the first person who flew, and I realized that this was my fall from the sun and I was falling back down to earth. But it's also when I realized that this had to be a restaurant that did things different, where we didn't have, because I found out that I was not the first cook that was from this restaurant that had these issues and just in restaurants in general. And I knew that had to change.
There's so many industries where there's this attitude that you got to pay your dues and you got to suffer. And a lot of it comes from nothing more than just habit and tradition. And well, that's what I went through. And therefore that must be the right way. And it's interesting how that process of change itself meets resistance. All of a sudden, somebody like you comes along and says, hey, I'd like to have a restaurant where we don't drive everybody to despair, So
yeah.
You're out at Alinea, you're having this really challenging time in life. And then how does counter happen from that? Because it seems
Yeah.
like to start a restaurant, you got to have like investors and you got to have a space and you got to have like, there's a lot to it, right? So how does that happen?
So so I ended up working at a place called Momotaro, Japanese restaurant, learned a bunch there. Now I was teaching kids how to cook. And I was doing some like side gigs, like being a catering chef for a kosher catering company. And then someone that I used to work with, as well as my stepbrother, they're like, hey, let's do a pop-up. You might want to move back down to Charlotte. We could open up a restaurant, whatever it may be. I was like, sure, we can test all this concept. I had been doing private dinners in Chicago where I was working on dishes for the concept, where I was going to actually do it in Chicago. I'd signed a lease for a place that was in Gold Coast area, and we come down and do a pop-up in October of 2019.
And a pop-up in this context is like a temporary restaurant. It's something that's just open for a
we
short
actually
time?
did it in someone's house. We did 2 nights at someone's house and sold out immediately. We got really great reception from it. Then we did another round, and then we started doing it at what was Lincoln's Haberdashery. I can't remember what it is now. And we did this until February 2020 when, the world ended. And I thought what was now at this point called Counter was done, at least for the foreseeable future. And I was just focusing in on developing myself more in Chicago.
All right. What's then called Counter is this vision, right?
Yeah.
And you've been carrying around this vision now for a while, right?
I mean, at that point, it was 4 years. 5.
Yep.
Yeah. 4
Okay.
or 5 years.
So it's always been there, but it hasn't come into existence yet. And at this point, at this moment that you're describing, you're thinking like, okay, it's on the shelf again.
What really changed everything was May 4th of 2020. And this is one of the most vivid memories I ever have. I'm walking down North Avenue, 4 blocks west from where I had jumped in front of a train 2 minutes early. And I'm walking next to the sketchiest Home Depot you've ever seen over this bridge. And I get a call from, her name's Dana, and she had the City Kitch in West Charlotte. It's changed owner since then. And they let me know about an opportunity for a space that I didn't have to really put any money into. They were going to build it out. All the equipment, everything was going to be baked into the lease. I was like, well, that sounds too good to be true. But then I realized, well, it's COVID. They're just trying to get people in there. And then I thought, well, I only need to feed 120 people a month to pay the bills if I've got 4 employees, myself being one of them. And I can just stay at my mom's place while, bringing in maybe $30,000 a year to start. We can kind of build from the ground up. But a huge element to this, sorry, that was May 5th. So the day before, May 4th, my best friend, Chris, he was out in Colorado, and he had survived cancer now for 4 times. He found out he was in remission. And when he was in the hospital finding out that he was in remission, he contracted COVID. And just a couple of days later, he was gone. And I mean, that's when I, just 24 hours later, I get the call about this place. And all I could think about is like, okay, Chris would be pissed at me if I don't go after this.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
It's a yes.
So I opened up Counter on $15,000. I had all of my personal cooking equipment and everything. I leased the equipment, but $15,000 was the loan that we got from private investors. We paid them back in 2 months, and we got the place open, and $10,000 of my own money. That was it, done. And the first month we did $56,000 worth of revenue. That was September of 2020, which is nothing. And then October we did like 70, and then December was when people started finding out about the restaurant. December was our first $100,000 month, and in January we did $325,000. It was one of those things where we'll fake it till we make it.
Yep.
We're going to prioritize time off. We're going to have paid leave. We're going to be off 3 weeks a year. We're only going to do a certain amount of services every single week. We're only going to charge a certain amount of money. We're not going to have a tipping system. Like, we just did all of it at once. And we were paying we were paying cooks so much more than what restaurants were usually paying people at the time. And it pissed a lot of people off. Like there's a lot of restaurateurs and chefs who hated us when we first opened because I had a policy that we were not going to do business with anyone that did not have a livable wage as their minimum wage. We were just not going to do it. And that really annoyed a lot of restaurants.
You set a standard.
Yeah, it's been a monumental change.
We'll be right back to the conversation, but first, this episode of the Charlotte Ledger podcast is presented by PBS Charlotte's Unspun program, discussing what politicians are thinking but not saying.
Well, it's a restaurant that's well known in Charlotte. It's on everybody's list of places to go and places to try, and it's quite an experience to go there. It's one that you've carefully constructed and curated to be a place that's memorable and special. And so walk me through it. I make my reservations. I'm making them in advance because you're booked up pretty good. But what is my experience as a patron of Counter when I arrive? Because it starts at the beginning and it goes all the way through to the end.
Yeah. And I think it even begins before you come into the building and it ends well after you leave. And it changes completely every single time. I can't express that enough. You know, we tell people all the time, like your first experience is always going to be an iconic one because you're experiencing this whole insane thing for the first time. Your second experience, you see how much we change. And then your third experience, you see the consistency and the connecting thread while all the changes are taking place. We have operated in different ways so many times. You know, the length of the menu has been different so many times. You know, the music changes every single time. The art changes. Our uniforms sometimes change. We get new plates for a lot of the dishes each time. Everything morphs. But when you book your reservation, you are making a huge leap of faith. We are completely aware of that. The average person, when they are booking their reservation at Counter, they're dropping right off the get-go $300 a person when you're including the ticket price, the service charge, taxes, and then usually they'll do either a wine pairing or one of our enhancements, whatever.
And you pay it up front, right?
Yeah, you pay it up front. Like I'm fully aware of this because like I travel a lot just to dine, and I'm making reservations. I made reservations last week for places I'm going to next January. So it's a huge leap of faith, and we are aware that at Counter, the first impression, that initial handshake, is not when you walk in the door. It is your interaction with the reservation platform. We have someone on staff. Her actual title is our Dreamweaver. And her whole goal is before you make your way into the restaurant, she is finding out what you're celebrating, where are you coming from, dietary restrictions and allergies, letting you know everything about how to get to the restaurant, everything that you can expect without giving away too much, and learning about you as well. So then when you show up, you meet her first. She's the first person you see in the door. And it's not like you're starting a conversation then. You're continuing one on with someone that you now finally get to meet. And then once you make your way into Counter, the first real room that you experience is our butterfly hallway. And that's where you get to understand the fleeting nature of the restaurant and kind of what we're doing, where you have 125 butterflies in this hallway, each one of them representing a different chapter of our story, different menu that we're doing. And that's when you find out that we started September 9th, 2020, and that we end September 9th, 2032. And our next main menu, the Nouvelle menu that starts in March, that is our 63rd menu. So we are at that point going to be halfway. So we're now closer to the end than closer to the beginning. So it's one of those things where that's when you realize, it's in that moment that you really realize that, okay, this is different.
The restaurant in this way has a lifespan, and like each of us does. And in that way, I imagine part of what you're thinking there is that it creates a preciousness, a value to the experience, just knowing that it's fleeting in some sense, that it's not going to be forever, and you can't just take it for granted. And so every 3 months or 90 days, you are totally changing the menu. And each menu has a thread that runs through it. The first time I went to counter, it was a fast food menu. It was like,
oh, hell yeah. Drive-through.
Takes on fast food, right?
Yeah, love that menu.
And then you said you've got one coming up. It's Nouveau.
Yeah, the Nouvelle menu, yeah.
Nouvelle, what's that theme?
So the Nouvelle movement started in Lyon, France, back in the 50s. And it's when you have Paul Bocuse, the Trois Gros brothers, Michel Roux, all these iconic chefs of that era, taking the classics of French haute cuisine and then really elevating it, utilizing much more luxurious ingredients, making it more refined, more elegant. And we are imagining if that movement happened in Charlotte instead of in France. And so we're only utilizing Carolinian ingredients, but having the same mindset and techniques. And, what's funny is a lot of people thought that there was no way that Counter was going to get a Michelin star, be in the running for it because of how much we changed the menu. And the feedback that we got and what's in the description, I think perfectly embodies it. It's like, you're going to consistently get Carolinian ingredients. You're going to consistently get high-tuned cookery. And you're going to consistently get a storytelling experience. It's just the story's going to change. My favorite menu we've ever done was called Here and Now. And it was a menu where we had 10 dishes, and they changed almost every day because it was only peak season items in the summer, and it was a vegetarian menu. And no one showed up for it. And this is right after we were a finalist for a James Beard.
Okay, so vegetarian is
no
tough.
one showed
Yeah,
up.
vegetarian's rough, man.
But it was the best tasting menu.
Yeah.
But no one showed up. Our restaurant almost closed because of that. And seriously, the menu was also in honor of 10 different heroes of Here and Now in local Charlotte. And we lost $120K over 90 days, which is crazy for a restaurant. Right after James Beard finalists, everything. When you would think that we would have an increase in business, but because it was vegetarian, no one showed up. But it solidified for us what we stood for. It's like, we are willing to almost close to stand on what we believe in, which is showcasing the produce of this region and telling the stories that we think are important. And that was such a monumental menu for the restaurant.
You've mentioned a couple times today the Michelin star. Counter was this year awarded a Michelin star. Michelin is an organization that evaluates and rates restaurants around the world. It is, it's an honor. It's a rare honor. And there's only one Michelin star restaurant in Charlotte, and it's yours. And it just came this year. What does that mean to you?
So I think you first have to, similar to how you explained the star, you have to look at where the star is coming from. So Michelin is also the tire company that you get your star from the Michelin Man. And it was a way for them to sell more tires, telling people to go to these restaurants, they'll wear out their tires, buy new ones. And now it's actually a huge piece of their company where it's pay to play for the region. So you had multiple different visitors authorities because it cannot be privately funded. It has to be publicly funded by tourist authorities and by government funding. And Travel South and all these other organizations came together to pay for the Michelin Guide to review restaurants in the South. And you pay for a certain amount of restaurants to be reviewed. That's how that whole operation works. Then there isn't a quota. There isn't a certain amount of Michelin stars that they give out. They can come back with nothing, but they have a certain rubric, a certain game that every restaurant plays where they go through the whole process and they determine if they're recommended, if they're not recommended, if they get a bib gourmand because it's in a certain price point. They get 1 star for excellent cookery, 2 stars if it's worthy of a detour, 3 stars for worthy of a special journey. In the United States, we have 14 3 Michelin star restaurants. We have around 45 2 stars, and we've got around 130 1-star restaurants. Not like I have memorized all of them. And it's built upon the level of cookery, the storytelling from the chef, like having that connection with the chef, the sourcing of the ingredients and unique nature of the ingredients, seasonality, and then consistency. Consistency being the most important thing. And consistency is the most debated word because consistency is not, are they making the exact same dish the exact same way every single time? It is also not that this dish is there every single time. It is that when they tell everyone by giving a Michelin star that it's excellent cookery, that every single person that comes into that restaurant will feel the same way. So when we were given our Michelin star, it was in a very odd way. The Michelin release for the South last year was probably the weirdest Michelin release of all time. So I can tell that you don't know this, that this happened from your reaction to that.
No.
So the list of who got stars and recommendations was leaked at 11 a.m. and the ceremony was at 7 p.m. And it was a huge deal. And everyone was confused. A lot of people had gone to Greenville, South Carolina, expecting there to be, I even expected there to be like maybe 5 Michelin stars in North Carolina, 7 maybe in South Carolina because of Charleston, quite a few in Nashville, quite a few in New Orleans. But then reality sets in. And anyone who says that Michelin is pay to play for restaurants, if that was the case, so many of these restaurants would have paid a whole lot of money to make sure they got a star. And so many places that got stars that don't have any money wouldn't have got their stars. They show up to Greenville and this list comes out and there's only one Michelin star restaurant in North Carolina. We have a little bit of survivor's guilt about that. I'm not going to lie. And there's only 3 in all of South Carolina. There's 3 in all of Tennessee. And there's only, I think, 3 in New Orleans, and one of them is a 2-star. EJ and Emily, shout out to them. They're incredible down at Emerald's.
Everybody that knew that they were under consideration, were they there for the ceremony?
They were there.
But they didn't, they got the news before the thing.
So you had a lot of upset people.
Sure.
You only had so there was only 9 new Michelin star restaurants in that release.
Yeah.
Only 9. So you have over 250 restaurants show up, only 9 people got a star.
Right.
And so you had all these people show up and frankly, it was a very somber ceremony at the beginning because you had so many people who felt let down and, we're trying to celebrate.
Right.
But, we got to have in the most counter way possible. We got to have the best celebration because we also got the Michelin Green Star, which is frankly more important to us than anything else.
And that represents
sustainability and everything. And we all freaked out. We're crying, everything. I call up my mom, and that was one of the greatest moments of my life was having that conversation with my mom. And my mom, she, because of things that happened that were out of her control when I was younger, she always felt like she wasn't a good enough mom. And I've always told her, you were the greatest mom ever. You got to give yourself a break. Because I learned that a lot from her. It's you could always be better type deal. It's no, you were still amazing. And, I was able to, over the phone, be okay, because of this, you can never say that you're a bad mom ever again. You can never say that you weren't a great mom ever again because you raised a child who just won the first and only Michelin star in North Carolina. And she acknowledged it, which is awesome. And so, and she signed, don't tell Michelin this, even though it's on a podcast that's going to be released to the public, but I had her sign the inside back of our Michelin star plaque because I wanted her to know that she had ownership of that too.
What's that been like for you? It's still new too, right? Are reservations booking faster than they used to?
Dude, it is.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. So November 3rd, we got the star. November 5th, we were sold out through March.
Wow. Okay.
So
bunch came in immediately.
Yeah. So then we released our spring and summer reservations the first week of December. Right now we are sold out through April. The majority of May, June, July, and August are booked. We do not have a weekend availability until mid-August.
Now you got to deliver though, man.
Yeah.
You got to keep
excited.
You got to keep bringing it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I imagine this is how you got here. So on some level, it's we're not going to mess with success. We're going to keep doing what we're doing because it's working for us. But do you worry?
Different because the reason why we got the star was because we're constantly pushing ourselves. So if we were to stick with what we're doing, we're not pushing ourselves anymore. So even before myself, the whole team, they're hunting for 2 stars. Like they want to so bad. And I was like, okay, if you want to, this is the foundation. Like this is the base of what we have to do. But the most important thing is we can never stop being ourselves. Because for me, it's more important for us to be ourselves than to keep the star. If we, and I've said this on many occasions, I would have rather us not get the star and be ourselves than not be ourselves and get a star. And so this year is the same, but can we be a better version of ourselves? Can we polish and refine ourselves and be stronger, but still being who we are? So that's what we're going to find out. And that's more important than anything else. So, and it's more important to the team as well. So yeah, we're going to go after 2. We're really hoping that there's more stars that make its way to North Carolina. I think there will be.
Yeah. Who do you think got left out? Like, what do you love? I mean, whether it relates to Michelin stars or not, like who, as someone who lives here, who thinks seriously about food and the business of food, what are your favorite places?
So I would say my favorite places to eat at in Charlotte would be Custom Shop, Dozo, Rinconcito Chilongo, which is a taqueria inside of a supermarket out in like Shamrock area. I love Minya. I love Barley and Burger in Monarch Market in Uptown. Shout out to them. They make, I think, the best burger in Charlotte. I love going to Optimist. Esso Artisanal Pasta is really, really good. Spaghetti, our sister restaurant, I dine at probably more than any other restaurant in Charlotte just because I thoroughly enjoy it.
So what's the future look like? You're in the second half of the lifespan of Counter, or soon to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got an end date. You're a young enough guy that hopefully your own end date will be sometime after Counter. There's going to be a time after Counter for you. What does that look like?
I mean, I would be incredibly grateful if if I do make it through all of Counter and I make it past that, like, that's a part of it. It's like every moment that we have is so precious. This is not like private knowledge. This is something that I've been open with recently is, I am giving over the majority of the ownership to the team that's there and whatever they want to do. Like our lease ends 2 years after our end date. So many people are like, oh, you just did it with your lease. No, I'm going to give them 2 years to do whatever they want with it. And they want to continue on with it. They continue on with it, but I'm going to move. I feel like my story in Charlotte will be at where it needs to be for me to walk away from my hometown. And I'm scoping out 2 cities internationally right now for what would be my project after Counter.
The project after Counter, was it delivered to you fully formed in a vision
No.
in one moment?
No, it was one that kind of came about through my moments of dining and exploring the world. There's a word, I actually have it tattooed on my face. It's one that completely changed my perspective of everything. And it's a word called sonder. It's only 14 years old. It was created for a dictionary called the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. And it means it's a realization where you understand that every single person in the world has just unique and complicated of a life as you do, making the same mundane and important decisions that you make every single day. And that butterfly effects of your decisions and their decisions could end up meeting up, maybe never meet up, or they might be hugely impactful on your life and you'll never know. And that realization was the spur of what I wanted to turn into a concept. And then I've spent the past 4 years working and developing on what that concept's going to look like. And I want to take a couple of years after Counter closes to do more exploration and learn more about not just that concept, but myself. And then my goal is that I'll open up that restaurant probably when I'm 40, 41.
Well, we'll look forward to it.
Be pretty cool.
Sam Hart, thank you for being together with me on the Charlotte Ledger podcast.
It was awesome. Thank you for letting me be here.
That's it for today. Thanks for listening. This episode was produced by Lindsay Banks. You can find out more about the Charlotte Ledger by visiting thecharlotteledger.com.
This episode of the Charlotte Ledger podcast was presented by PBS Charlotte's Unspun program that tells you what politicians are often thinking but not saying.
QueenCityPodcastNetwork.com.